Hi everyone, it's Sherry from the blog ourlifehomeschooling.com, where I share homeschooling encouragement for everyday moms. I want to talk to moms of all little ones today and offer you some encouragement as you homeschool your kids. If you're new to the channel, my name is Sherry. I am a homeschooling mom to 10 kids. I'm married to my high school sweetheart Nelson. We've been married for 23 years. I'm a former public school teacher turned homeschool mom. I love encouraging other moms on my YouTube channel and on the blog, ourlifehomeschooling.com. If you like the content that you see here, would you do me a favor and like and subscribe? Down to the floor. Are you a mom with lots of littles trying to homeschool your kids? Do you look at other seasoned homeschool moms and wonder how they possibly do it or how they did it when their kids were all young? Because it just seems impossible some days with so many little ones underfoot. You love the idea of a rich education through homeschooling, but the reality just seems impossible sometimes. I have a lot of sympathy for moms with young kids because I remember this stage so well. In fact, it's one I've been in for such a long time. We have 10 kids. Our oldest is 18. We just took him off to college this past week. He's at Word of Life Bible Institute. We had an amazing weekend there. So our oldest is 18 and our youngest is 7 months, and we have several children in between. So we have been homeschooling with littles for a very long time. And as difficult as it can be sometimes now in the day-to-day, I still think that it was much harder in the beginning when they were all little. There's just things that have changed now that some of them are older that make it a lot easier, even though we still have a lot of those little ones. When they were all little, they were all dependent on me. They didn't entertain themselves as well. Everyone needed me, and I was trying to make meals and take care of the house. And then our youngest ones, needed help with everything. So I remember those years as very challenging, and I have a lot of sympathy and really want to encourage those of you that are in that stage. Those early years were ones that my husband and I refer to as diapers, dishes, dirty laundry, and dinner on repeat. They were not easy. Have you ever heard yourself say the words, "I can't get anything done"? I know I sure have. Being with young children is really exhausting. They have so many needs. When you spend a day with very young children, it's completely unpredictable. You can have a to-do list and things that you plan to get done that day, and you can even keep it very short, but there is no guarantee that you can get any of it done. You are really subject to their moods, to their needs, to some of the discipline issues you might have. When you have all little children, sometimes you're pregnant or you just have an infant and you're losing sleep at night. My 2-year-olds always go through this phase where they just whine constantly. You have babies teething, you have a toddler that decides not to nap. When kids hit around the age 3, it seems like they ask a million questions non-stop. They're always asking you questions. And I don't know if you feel this way, but I often feel like a sounding board. As soon as the kids see me enter the room, all of a sudden they have all these questions or all these needs, and if I'm not there, they don't even think of it. But as soon as they see my face, they have needs and they're needy. And this is normal. They need a lot of care. Additionally, many moms who have all little ones are homeschooling for the very first time. So everything seems brand new to them. Choosing a curriculum and getting used to it, being familiar with it, this is all new. You're probably teaching your child to read for the very first time, to write, and you've never done that with anyone before. You're trying to run a house all the while adjusting to a homeschool mentality rather than a traditional school mentality, which is what many of us had when we were growing up. You're figuring out a routine, you're learning what your personality is and what your child's learning style is. Now, I don't want to sound too negative, but the truth is that all these things are just a reality for many moms of little children. One thing I didn't realize when I started out homeschooling was that these were foundational years for our homeschool as well as our family life. You are starting out, and if you compare it to something like a project or a building that you're building, or if you're starting a business, the beginning is always the hardest part. In fact, just using the analogy of building something, look at if you're building a house, for example, the beginning is digging out the foundation. And so you have this big hole in the ground and you look at it and it actually looks like you're moving backward, not forward. It looks like it has no resemblance to the beautiful home that you have envisioned and that you have on paper. This is very similar to homeschooling. Those early years, you see little, if any, fruit. And it's hard work. It's day after day of changing diapers, doing dishes, meeting the individual needs of each of your kids, sometimes getting little sleep and being very exhausted. And then you don't always have a lot to show for it at the end of the day. The idea of homeschooling seems so appealing to you, but the reality just seems impossible sometimes. What you need to know is that you're in the foundational stage of homeschooling and of your family life. So you're not going to see that fruit. It's just going to it is a lot of hard work. But you can take heart, because I think if you hear from other homeschool moms that these are foundational years, that will help you to just be able to push through and keep going, knowing that you're going to see results in the future. When you've been homeschooling for several years, you have a better perspective on things like this. This is our 14th year of homeschooling, and we have one that has gone all the way through and graduated. And then we have kids all the way in between. So let's see if I can remember 10th, 9th, 7th, 5th, 3rd, 1st, and kindergarten. And then we have a 2-year-old and a 7-month-old. So while I remember all those hard early years and the blood, sweat, and tears, I also have been able to see when our child starts learning to read. And then when they get really excited and find books that interest them and different authors, and they just kind of take off and read all these books by this one author, or they get excited about trying different science experiments and doing things on their own. As they get older, they become more and more independent. And you start to do very little. In fact, with my kids that are in high school, sometimes I feel with them that I'm not homeschooling them because they do so much on their own. And of course, they come to me as a facilitator, but it's so much less hands-on work for me. This is how this changes. And I've been able to see this fruit in my kids. And when you can see it, you can look back and see those younger years for what they were. They were foundational. Those were the hard years. And it makes that investment so worth it. I want to encourage you that it does get easier. One thing is, the more you homeschool, the better you get at it. So the first time I taught math with our oldest son, we would get to certain points in math and I would have this panicky feeling like we just can't go on. I don't know what to do now because I didn't understand it. And this is, common for a lot of homeschool moms. The very first time you see something, you can't remember how you did it in school. But we stopped and we figured it out. It took some time. We figured it out. Sometimes I asked people. And then after that, with all of our kids that came behind, I understood it. And not only that, you get better at learning how to break something down for other people to understand. So the more you do it, it's also like starting a business. It seems so impossible and you run into so many roadblocks in the beginning, but the more you do it, the more you know how this system operates or how to work this and manage this problem. That's exactly how homeschooling is. It also gets easier because as your oldest kids get older, they become more independent. And I found that When your independent kids outnumber your dependent kids, that's when this really starts to flip and become much easier. One thing about having older kids around that makes it different than when you have all littles, even if they're not helping. And in general, my kids usually like to help with their siblings. They have a lot of fun with them. But even if they're not helping, they're just there and they're entertaining. So instead of your little ones always needing you all the time, they are just hanging around the older ones, sitting beside them, and they see them doing school. So they want to get out a paper and a pencil, and they'll sit and just doodle and pretend that they're drawing. And just having them there is entertaining for younger kids, which takes a little bit of a burden off of you that you're feeling in the beginning stages when everybody needs you. When your kids are little, they really know nothing. So those of you that are in these beginning stages, you're having to teach them just every basic thing. How to make their bed, how to put their clothes in the laundry, how to brush their teeth, of course, how to start reading and writing and understanding just following a rhythm and what you do next in your school day. All of that is so new. You have to teach them all of it. But as you have more older kids, you don't have to spend as much time doing that because they just see how it works. They're observing everyone else in the house, and that's just a lot less that you have to teach them. A good example is when our oldest son learned how to ride a bike without training wheels. It was a lot of work for me and my husband. We would go out every day, we made sure he practiced, and we'd help him, and it was something that took a lot of time for us to help him with. Then when it came time for our second son to start learning how to ride a bike, we went out to teach him, and we realized he halfway had it. He was getting it because our oldest son was out there teaching and helping him. And so the time that we spent with him, helping him to learn to ride a bike was just a lot less. And this is what happens as you have your oldest child getting older. Of course, the most obvious benefit to your kids getting older is that the older ones can help with the younger ones. Now, I know a lot of people like to criticize this and say your older kids are raising your younger ones. It really is nothing like that. I'm sure it can be in some families. It's not like that in our family. But our mentality is we all work together to get the job done, whatever that is. So sometimes it's just the option between would you like to do the dishes or would you like to help with the baby, and I'll do the dishes. And you give them the choice, and a lot of times they would rather just sit on the front porch and watch the baby crawl around rather than do the dishes. So we all work together, and it is really just nice to have kids who enjoy helping. Let me offer some practical solutions for those of you with young kids. The first is that I would aim to just get a little bit of progress done every day. So try to get to math, reading, and writing, and just a little bit. And some days are going to be good and you're going to get a little bit farther, and some days it's going to seem like one emergency after another when you have little children, and you're going to not get much done at all. But keep that idea in mind that you're moving forward. When you hit roadblocks, when you hit impossibilities, just pick yourself up and keep going, because again, you're in those foundational years. So instead of thinking that you need to have this full day of school, that you need to get all these things done that you have planned, make your goal to just make progress. And this is going to relieve you, and you're going to find that just a little bit here and there really does make for a lot. Another practical solution I would give would be to get away when you need to recharge. We've all had that moment when you feel like you have come to the end of your rope. You cannot take one more problem, one more discipline issue, one more whining toddler. Everything just seems to be falling apart, and you're just exhausted. You're burnout. If you've had a day like this or a couple days like this, please know that this happens to a lot of moms, and I found one of the best things for me is just to get away. So go out for coffee with a friend, go out shopping for an hour or two. Your husband can watch the kids, or maybe you have some family or some friends that can help just for a little bit. Whatever you have to do to make it happen, even for a very short period of time, really helps. You can come back, you can get some perspective, and just get a little bit of a break. I know a lot of times when I get out, it's hard to push me out the door. I tend to be an introvert. I love the idea of going out, but when it comes right down to it, it just seems easier to stay at home. And a lot of times my husband has to say, just go. You'll have a really good time. Just go, get a break. You'll feel so much better when you come home. And he's right. When I come home, I feel so much better. I look at my kids differently, and I just feel refreshed and ready to get out and serve them again. A last tip I would give would be to pause and tackle whatever tough issue you're facing. So maybe you just feel like you can't get on top of the housework. Everything is a mess. You have maybe some kind of system in place, but it's just not working. Maybe you have a discipline issue. I know this happens a lot with little children where you have a child that just whines all day, and it seems like this one child is keeping everyone from getting anything accomplished. When you have things like this that come up, I have found it really helpful to just stop. Put school on a back burner, however long you need to do that. Maybe take a whole day and just focus on whatever that problem is. Figure out a strategy to solve it, a way to at least tackle it and figure out how you can get it under control so you can move forward. You're not going to be wasting time, and you're not going to get behind by just stopping and taking care of that so that you can go ahead and get back to work on your homeschooling. I want to remind you that you are doing kingdom work. The work that you're doing has eternal ramifications. Each child in your home is a soul that's been entrusted to you by God. And it's your responsibility and your awesome privilege to raise them in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. And when you have this eternal mindset, it really helps to make these earthly troubles seem much smaller. I hope this has encouraged you today. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next week.